Welcome to the Builder Hacks Podcast, your go-to destination for cutting-edge strategies, time-tested systems, and invaluable insights to revolutionize your construction business and elevate your life. Join your hosts, Nate Piper and Keith Meals, seasoned contractors who are not just in the trenches, but are also pioneering the future of the industry through Concord University. In each episode, we dive deep into the minds of the industry's most accomplished building professionals, uncovering their secrets to success and sharing actionable tips to help you thrive. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, our goal is to empower you to build a brighter future for yourself and for America. Tune in, level up, and let's build a better tomorrow together. This is the Builder Hacks Podcast. Build your future, building America.
We're extremely intimate with the problem, right? Like we live the problem every day. And so daily. What I keep coming back to is like, how do these people not know the problem, right? And if they don't know the problem, how do we, let them know, like, hey, by the way, we're over here. This is a problem. Not only it's not a little problem, it's a major problem, and everybody's just like walking by with a blind eye, and everybody's trying to go be a barista at Starbucks. Yeah.
Yep.
And they're, it's like, hey, let me be a barista at Starbucks at 29. It's like,
all right. Exactly. Yeah.
You should have had that job when you were 16.
If it works for you and that's where your passion lies, that's awesome. But
yeah,
not exactly in most people's minds, not the career field for everybody who's working at Starbucks. There's no question about it.
Unless they want to be,
people,
unless they want to be a branch owner, and then great, go through
that, and then
process.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But that's it. Is it your career path or not? And I think that's really what, when we look at it, it's like you and I recognize it all the time. The challenge is getting, and even the people in the industry, like the other subcontractors and things like that we work with, most of them recognize. I don't think I've talked to any of my guys that don't realize there's a challenge right now with getting labor in, and getting people skilled. So the industry itself is aware of what the challenge is. It's literally getting other people to become aware of it. And that's like, even in part of my origin story, I talk about that a little bit because I went the traditional route, and so did you. You went to college and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we went the traditional routes that we were supposed to go down. So according to what we had been programmed as kids, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
That's what ends up happening. And then, we both end up in an industry where, for me, I didn't graduate from college. I went to Penn State for 3 years. So, and at that point decided to step away is what it came down to. I knew at that point it wasn't the thing that was for me. And whenever I stepped away, that's where I went multiple different places. And by doing that, I ended up, I had a love for construction. I had a love for architecture and things like that from high school. And then I just got into the industry working out ton more of that. That's how it ended up happening.
So where did it come in? Like what was the first time that you put a tool in your hand and you started working? When did that?
I was 18, 19, must have been 19 years old. So, because it was after my freshman year of college, whenever I'd started dating a girl whose brother-in-law is co-owned a construction company.
Okay.
And whenever I was doing that. So like I came home that summer and they're like, hey, do you want a job? Because they needed help. So they needed a laborer to come out and do stuff. So I'm like, sure, I get to be outside, and they offered to pay me under the table, which I was going to be happy with that at 19 years old, getting paid underneath the table instead of sending all my money to Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
And went there and did that, got to be outside. So, at
and
that
so
point,
what was day one like for you on that? Right. So can you remember back to like day one of getting on the job site and like?
For me, I would say, because of the fact that like I didn't have a dad around.
Yeah.
So it wasn't one of those things that I had experienced helping him out at the house and doing things, whenever I was younger. Yeah. So for me, there was a huge amount of nervousness. So going out there, because like I have no idea what I'm doing. I show up and I have zero tools. So I'm that guy that shows up on the site without a tool because I didn't know what I was supposed to have or anything.
Yeah.
And I know, my boss had, he had an extra tool belt and he had extra tools that he could give me and everything like that, which was perfect because it's what I needed. And the one piece of advice he gave me whenever I did that, and it's the same advice that I give to people that come to work for me who show up the same way, is that whenever you do this, what I would say is that my guys get paid every week. So it's like, if you get paid every week, take a little bit of your paycheck and go and buy a tool. So something that we're going to use. And our guys, depending on what their position is in the company, they may not need a ton of tools, but there's always a few things you're going to need no matter what position you've got in our company as far as construction goes. And it's like, go out and buy those pieces. So, and you can do it a little bit at a time and build into it. So you don't have to go out and drop, 3 paychecks worth of stuff in one sitting. So to go ahead and pull everything in.
Don't go to Home Depot and drop your entire paycheck in the tool department.
Yeah, that's exact. They'll love you for it.
The Home Depot will love you for it. They probably want you to be
customer.
there, but and you'll have fun while you're there. But you'll recognize how much money you
for the rest
spent.
of that week. It's not going to be a good week. Yes.
Roman noodles.
And that was where the. Yep.
Roman noodles and bread.
Hey, been down that route before. Actually, it was macaroni and cheese for me because I didn't even know what ramen noodles were at that point. So it was boxes of Kraft macaroni and cheese. But whenever I started, I was nervous as heck. So there's no question. I mean, I didn't know what it was, and it's the funniest. Well, it's funny now when I look back at it. Back then, it wasn't funny. So, but whenever I first started, we were working on a big commercial warehouse, is what we were working on, and we were peeling off. They had corrugated roofing. So we were taking the corrugated off, no sub deck underneath of it at all. So it was just the trusses. So we took the corrugated off because it was the old metal corrugated, so you could actually walk across it. We would take that off, plywood up the deck, and then shingle it is what we were doing. And I was staying at my girlfriend's house one night, just sleeping over. So different beds. So I was a good kid.
Yeah.
Or at least her parents thought so. And so whenever we were doing that, I woke up, in the middle of the night, they come in the room and they're like, what's going on? I had dreamed in my head. So that I was working on that job. I mean, I remember the dream in my head.
Yeah.
So whenever they woke me up, I was working on that job and they had put down all the decking and I was trapped underneath the decking, between the decking and the ceiling underneath. So, and I couldn't get out and I'm banging on the roof deck. So getting out, which meant I was standing on the bed that I was sleeping in, banging on, I'm rocking this house, banging on the wall. So, and they're like, what is going on? I woke up at that point and I explained, I'm like, and I said it was just a dream. I said, I have no idea. So I've never done that before. I said, it was a first for me. And that was one of the things that in my head, I was like, holy cow, where did that come from? And that's one of the reasons I look at it this way. It's kind of one of those things where I never had anything like that stuck with me to that point. So where I had that kind of a dream. So, and at the time, obviously that was a challenging dream. I'm stuck. And at the same time, it was the piece of, this is something that at least has enough emotion for me and something I like enough that I'm still dreaming about it later on. Yeah. It's kind of, whenever I look back at it now, that was kind of one of those triggers. So
day one, hooked, line, and sinker, you were caught on forever. It's like we reached up and grabbed you.
That's exactly it. So it yanked me in. Well, and the fun, so I did that for what, 2-3 summers. So, cause that's what it was. I took half a semester off, and whenever I was off that half a semester, I work with them and things. And then whenever I took that time off after that, the girlfriend I was dating and I broke up. Yeah. So, and construction got a little tighter where we were. So they economized as far as their crews went. So I went off and got another job at that point. So working forward. And it's one of the funny things. My mom to this day still says, I have no idea why anyone would hire you. So because I used to work in every job that I had for 2 to 3 years max.
Yeah.
And then I would go get another job. And usually it wasn't even in the same industry, entirely different industry. Yeah. So because for me, I needed to have something different. And that was the piece that I realized, because I get bored. I get really good at it. I get promoted as high as I could get promoted in that short amount of time. Yeah. And then I'd be sitting around and I'm like, I need something new.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do, is go find it. Well, and that's exactly it. I love that challenge piece. So,
there's so many people that have that same kind of interaction or beginning that kind of like, especially in the trades industry, it's like they get started, they have no idea, they have no skills, they have no tools, they have no inkling of like what this thing is, and they dive into it and they just step out on a leap of faith, and then that thing grabs them and it holds on to them, and it gives them something that they didn't even know that they were missing. And then the next thing you know, they start walking down this path, and they're gaining knowledge, and they're gaining experience, and they're gaining, reinforcement, positive reinforcement. And then all of a sudden they just start accumulating the knowledge to a point where they master something. And then they like, oh, this is great. And then they move into the next phase or the next piece or into something like that. So that's interesting. I think that's a very powerful.
And I agree with you. I mean, it's one of the pieces, like I'll get like the guy that does a lot of our tile for us right now. So he's worked in so many of the different trades throughout construction. He's done trim, he's done framing. So he's done, what else has he done? He's done a couple other things too. So those are the ones I know off the top, because occasionally I use them for those things.
Yeah.
And some of the things he's doing for us. But anyways, a lot of the people do that though. And that's
Yeah.
the big thing, is you get that chance in the industry to be able to go ahead and kind of taste it. So I always say sample the buffet, see
Yeah.
what's out there, and see
Yeah.
which one actually goes ahead and resonates, because each of them has different focuses, different skill sets, and draws a different type of person. So is what it comes down to. And that's the part that there's such a variety still in the industry itself. You know, as
Mm-hmm.
long as you're willing to, like you mentioned it before, as long as you're willing to go deep and actually learn it. So, and pay attention to the details and master the trade. It's so easy. So to
Yeah.
be able to go ahead and do things. But that's where the challenge comes in, is that so many people get in there, and it's, look at it this way. Whenever you first started riding a bike, for most of us, at least, I know whenever I first started riding a bike, so, was out there, mom had the training wheels on and still had her hand on the back of the bike and everything like that as we're riding down the street. So, and that's the phase that most people only get to whenever they get into a trade. So they
Mm-hmm.
just start, and it's uncomfortable. You
Yeah.
don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have no balance in this situation. So it's like you're all over the place. You feel like you're never going to learn this. You keep falling and stumbling. So,
Yeah.
and well, back in our day, Nate, at least in my day, so the other guys in the crew would let you know when you were stumbling. There's no question about it.
Real fast and get it
Yeah,
together.
yeah, in no uncertain terms. And that's the pieces. I see so many people right now who just don't give it long enough to get good at it.
Yeah.
And that's where, and then they switch into something else, and you go literally back to the same thing again. You go
Mm-hmm.
back to, this is brand new. Now you're stumbling in that area. And it's
Yeah.
like they just keep bouncing, and they look for what is the easiest thing. So, and what's the easiest may or may not be the right thing for you, because usually easy means comfortable, which means you've been there before. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you're growing, and it doesn't mean you're giving yourself the opportunity to see what's possible. So is what I typically see. The people who stick with it. So, I mean, like, I'll
Well,
give you an example. Paige, who's my stepdaughter, when she
uh-huh.
came to work for me, so she came to work for me being my driver so that I was able to do things.
Yeah.
And when she came to work for me, so she was only planning on driving, and it was only going to be for a short time until she figured out what she wanted to do. And literally, you could tell for the first 2 or 3 months, that's all. Like, we'd get to a job site and she would just be hanging out in the truck, wouldn't even get out of the truck half the time to go in the job site with me. And I was like, all right, it is what it is. I asked her to be a driver. She's a driver.
Yeah.
And then, as time went on, she would come in with me and start learning more and start learning things. And it took about 6 to 8 months. So
Yeah.
before, and she was 18 years old. So she was fresh out of
Yeah.
high school,
Yeah.
brand new, and had zero construction industry experience at all. So she was very unsure of herself, to say the least. So whenever she got started, and I think that for her, that was one of the big challenges, is she didn't want to step into an area that she was uncomfortable in. So she knew nothing. She didn't feel she could add anything to the conversation, wasn't able to answer a lot of the questions and things like that if somebody asked her that. But the guys are all welcoming. So, and the ladies love it whenever they see another lady on the construction site. So,
Yeah.
because they like to see more of that, is what it comes down to. But it just took her time, and now she's been in it for 3 years, in the last two, so 2.5, 2+. So she's been actually out in the field as a project manager. It's assistant project manager, then a project manager. So whenever she started, and she's learned more, and she's still learning. So, and you
Oh,
can
growth.
see that growth and that progress. It
Yeah.
just takes time.
Well, the other thing that she did was she had to push through, these internal, belief systems, right? Like
Definitely.
what I've come to find out and realize is that, these internal conversations that everybody has with themselves, and everybody has these conversations, right?
Mhm.
Is the thing that holds them back, right? So as she was like, I'll do the job, I will come and drive, but I'm not getting out of the car, I'm not talking to a customer, I'm not, and these are all internal things. She didn't say them to you. This was
Right.
all
Right.
internal stuff,
This is
right?
all her own talk.
And it took her seeing and going and being and doing to a point where she got comfortable with the conversation inside her head. Well, what are they doing inside? And then it led to a question of curiosity. And then that question of curiosity led
key.
to, well, let me just get out and see, because I don't know what he's doing. I just know that I'm driving him, and I might hear a conversation or two, and it just piques some interest. And then the next thing is like, okay, what's the next challenge that she had to overcome? And then the next one. But these were all progressions, and these internal conversations are with everybody in every job. And that's the hurdle that people have to get over, is that they start these conversations. Even I've got guys that have been in the trades, 5, 6, 7 years, and there's points that they hit where that I know that they're about to hit the wall, and it's like, okay, now I need to help you run through this wall or get over this hurdle, because that internal conversation is what's holding you back from you going forward or gaining more knowledge or moving into the next position. And I think that's important that people understand that look, we all have these internal conversations.
And that's the key piece, like what you brought up there, Nate. So is on those internal conversations, there's no question it runs through everybody's. I don't care who they are or how confident they look and what they come off at. For each one of us, we have a new level that we are unsure of whenever we're stepping into it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the key things. Like I've told Paige that a million times. I'm like, you think that I'm confident in everything we do? I said, there's projects I take on that I have zero idea how this is. I know what the end result's going to be. So, but there's still questions in my mind as we're going ahead and doing this for new things that we've never done before. I said, and all I can do is lean in and rely on. Big thing is I can rely on the team that's around because of the subcontractors that I have, the connections among other builders that I've got. So there's always resources there. So to go ahead and reach out to. Now, I mean, one of the things you and I have identified a million times, over our conversations, is the challenge right now is there's not enough people coming in to learn that, which means the people who know it are getting out of the industry.